get started here, Cathy. I'll start the recording up, and then I am going to hand it over to you.
Okay.
So you're good to go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Cathy Wagner, and I work with Minnesota IT as a financial program manager. So what does that really mean? I work with my background is in finance, which is maybe, you'll see that as I go through the slide. I've worked in state government for, I don't know, over 20 years, and I've had a variety of roles, but they've all been around data management, some kind of data management, data outreach, helping people understand what's going on with data. So let me just start by talking a little bit about what MNIT is. MNIT stands for Minnesota IT Services, and we've just been through this journey of consolidating IT. Before we started this, I have 70 executive branch agencies, and they all had IT that was locally managed. So over the last 6-8 years, we have been moving IT to an enterprise solution. So all of the IT reports to a state CIO and is managed across a group of CIOs, they call them CBTOs, Chief Business Technology Officers, who work with the state agencies. So finance has had to do a lot of growing in the last 8 years, and because we are providing finance for all of the financial support for all of the state agencies. So part of what we do is we manage a service portfolio of about 200 IT services, and every 2 years we figure out how much those are going to cost. We set biennial budgets and rates, and that's done in conjunction with the governor's budget cycle. And I put down here just a quick little thing. Rate setting, 7-step process, starts with strategic planning, figuring out what we want to sell. So that's the service portfolio. Volume forecast for us is asking the customers how much they think they're going to use. Enterprise budgets then is the central people figuring out what it's going to cost to provide those services. Cost allocation, I was listening to a couple of other presentations. We have a cost allocation model. I'm not going to get into that, but that's one of our steps. We figure out what services are going to need from support from other things. Then we run rates, and then we submit to our management budget office. So nice,
Cathy,
Yep.
Cathy.
Yep.
I'm just going to pause you for a second, because if you're talking to your slides, which I think you are, your slides are not advancing. We're still the title slide in edit mode.
Oh. Okay, let's see. All right, that's what I was worried about.
It's okay. I realized you were talking through points on one of your slides, and I'm like, whoa, the slide didn't change.
Yeah. So hold on, I've got to.
So if you want to just share PowerPoint instead of like sharing your entire screen, and then put your PowerPoint into presentation mode, it should work.
Now, are you seeing my email? I suppose.
We're not seeing anything right now.
You're not seeing anything. All right. Well, I'm also the worst end user. So, let's see, screen 1. Is that better? Can you see?
I'm seeing the same thing here. So you might want to start your presentation. There you go. Okay. Start your slideshow.
Still bad.
There you go.
But okay. You're still seeing. You're not seeing things advance, or are you?
We are now.
You are now, but are you seeing 2 slides or 1?
We're seeing 2 slides.
I'm on the wrong screen here. I don't know what's going on.
The bigger one is, I think, like it's just showing a current one and then what comes up next.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so nice, tidy little process here. So, and I'm going to spend the rest of the time talking about what can go wrong with a tidy process. And I think Nan had wanted me to talk about financial staffing data today, but I think all of my comments really will apply to any kind of data set that you want to look at. So over the years, when we first started consolidation, we were an Excel shop and a PDF shop. We did all of our computations and shared them in a variety of Excel spreadsheets. And they were, as you know, needless to say, they weren't super well received. We had a lot of questions about what is our, what does our Excel mean? How do we know the data is valid? You keep changing stuff. And so we found out that we really, with the Excel process and the PDFs, we didn't really have the right information for our business partners to make strategic decisions. And I don't think we're quite there yet. We've made a lot of progress, but I think that we're still struggling with that. One of the things that we've really tried to focus on is making sure that everybody can see monthly service costs. And I think Ginger was talking a lot about that in the presentation that I just listened to. Our customers are saying we can't tell if billing is right or not with these reports. And then when you talk about financial data, they always want to say, what happened to my vacancies? I thought I had more. And financial data is its own particular kind of issues. So why is financial data so confusing? And I think this applies to just about any data set, but to be understandable and useful, all data is going to need a clear context. So from a financial data perspective, what is the information telling you? We had to really take a look at what are we talking about? Are we talking about head counts, which is an HR concept, or are we talking about an FTE count, which is a financial concept? And business partners need to understand both. And then when I talk about business partners in this context, I'm talking about the CBTOs, the Chief Business Technology Officers. Those are our main customers, but the Chief Business Technology Officers then need to in turn work with the business. So if we're talking about Department of Agriculture, we work with the CBTO, who's in the CIO role, who then in turn works with the business partners at the Department of Ag. One of the things we have to figure out is how does our data fit with the business objectives of the organization? So from a staffing data perspective, are we talking about an HR issue where we need to know how many positions we have to fill, or are we talking about it from a financial perspective? Do I have enough money to fill those positions? And then from the organizational perspective, do we have enough money for any of this? And I think the answer this year is we don't. It's been a real struggle, I think, as it has been for everybody. Another issue that we've seen is who's responsible for creating these data? Who's the person? Who's the organization? What's the data source? So for financial data, I'll talk about it. For the staffing data, I'll talk about what our authoritative sources are. And our business partners always want to know whether it is the MNIT people that we work with or the business partners in the agencies. How do we know that your data is right? I have a different data set. I have a different calculation. How do I know which one is right? And then with staffing data, big issue here is data security and privacy standards. How do you know you can share staffing data? And I think that has been one of the reasons that we've kept staffing data tamped down for a long time is I think there's a lot of confusion about what the data practices rules are around that. So we had a particularly bad cycle 2 years ago, and we ended up with a legislative audit report that said we needed to do a better job including stakeholders and making sure that everybody understood from their perspective what was going on across our 7 rate set of steps. So we took a step back, and even though we've been working, we have a large team, we've been working to bring people into the process. I think what we've decided was we maybe weren't as organized about it as we could have been. And I think everybody was shocked when we took a step back and said, who are our stakeholders? And we came up with 14 different groups. So we came up with a MNIT leadership group. So these are the executives. We have the commissioner, deputy commissioner, chief technology officer, who has a huge role in this. And sometimes we've seen a variety or various chief technology officers come through. Sometimes they write this off as, oh, this is just a finance thing, and I don't need to worry about it because I'm in charge of technology. And actually, this is so entwined with technology and such a part of the chief technology officer role that we've taken a lot of steps to make sure that we can have that be a real active contributing role. And then the CBTOs, those are the CIOs that are in the agency. So just within leadership, we have 4 different groups who, as you'll see, have different communication roles. And when those roles break down, that's when we start having all of those problems that we talked about on the last, or that I showed on the last page. And because this is about setting IT service rates for IT service, of course, we have the enterprise service teams. So we have enterprise service directors who manage these services. They manage the delivery from a director level. We have service managers who are a little bit more feet on the ground. And then we have relationship managers. We have a group at MNIT of people who reach out to business partners. That's their job. And then, of course, we have finance. Finance is kind of undergirding all of this. So the first two groups are, I think, typically what you'd see in any organization that was doing IT rates. And the piece that we've added new over the last 8 years, and this has been a painful but I think rewarding process. And if you'd asked us at the beginning, is this necessary, we probably would have said no. In fact, I know we said no. But as we've added these groups, I think this has led a lot to our maturity. We now have a financial steering team. And the financial steering team has been a huge help in communicating. So all of our budgets and rate setting decisions, for example, how to handle over or under recovery rates, we have to work with the federal guidelines on that. Do we charge agencies? Do we give money back? Those kind of decisions. The financial steering team helps us make those decisions and helps communicate that out to the CFO community across the enterprise. The next governance group is a services governance group, and that governance group I think is one of the more recent ones to come on board. This is a group that we use to kind of control the services that will be offered. One of the problems that we used to have was we'd be in the middle of a rate setting process, and one of the service managers would come and say, oh, well, I have a new product line I want to introduce a month before budgets are due. Having a services financial group, a services governance group, has allowed us to put some order and context around that. And then, of course, we have an executive steering team, which is really made up of the MNIT leadership groups. Commissioner sits on there, the deputy commissioner. We have a couple of chief business technology officers on there, CTOs on there. But what's good about that group is it's a venue for us to take budget and service issues, discussions, questions, and get the buy-in and feedback. And then partner agencies. We have, of course, the CFOs, the chief financial officers. We have the agency leadership. So the MNIT leadership bucket, we have that same bucket repeated at each of the agencies. And then, of course, we have Minnesota Management Budget. So this was a shock to us that we had all of these groups. And that when our partners were saying, we don't understand what's going on, or we think the rates aren't right, or whatever the question was, it would be coming from one of the 14 groups. So it's been very critical for us to take data governance head on. And actually, I don't want to give the impression that we're 100% there. This is still kind of an emerging thing. But data governance for us is kind of a two-part thing. In general, it's a high-level framework of policies and procedures. The policies and procedures come through the 3 core governance groups, and they help us understand how we're going to act around the data. And they include things like data practices, statutes, legal reviews. But the biggest operational thing that I think we're still struggling with is what is a data steward and what's a data custodian, and who are they? What do they do, and how can they help? And so I think data stewards, they're focusing on business management. So those would be the enterprise service directors, the relationship managers. They're looking at the data. How does that come in from the various product lines? How do we count the IP phone usage? How do we count the laptops on a monthly basis when we bill? Those are the stewards. And then the custodians will focus on the technical processes. And there's a group behind that, there's an IT group behind that makes sure that we get the data in the formats that we want. And these are typically IT programmers and DBAs. So how does this all work with staffing data? So staffing is is the largest part of any IT budget. And I think I said before, it has 2 stewards, human resources and finance, and they both use this data differently. Human resources looks to see where you are in the process of filling positions and managing staff. Finance only has one question. They want to know, do you have enough money? And do you have enough money to fill that position this year? And if that position goes formally into your account, do you have enough money to manage that position in the out years? And what we found is we don't always use the same data sources. Or if we did use the same data source, we weren't in sync with how we used it. I think I have some more questions down there. Finance says, how many FTEs do we have? How many vacancies? So I think I talked about all of that. All right, so here, authoritative data sources. This is all going to lead to our fledgling big data solution. I'll give that away and I'll show you some of the dashboards we've been working on. But we actually have 4 authoritative sources for staffing, and I'll go through what they are. We have the first one at the top, the NICAS budgets. That's where our biennial budgets live. So if we need to say how much money did I have at the beginning of a cycle, that is developed in NICAS. But when we get to the operational parts of data, we look at, I'm going to go, I guess, around to the right here. SWIFT, we have a statewide accounting system that manages the budget, so we know how much money we're spending every month, every pay period. We bill every month for IT services, and so that's another system. That's we call it the COSWEB billing system. And it takes data from SWIFT. And then we have the Semaphore payroll system. And that's the system that manages staffing counts, it manages step increases, it manages cost of living increases. That's all managed. Both the Semaphore and the SWIFT are management and budget systems. And NICAS and COSWEB are minute systems. But when we talk about data and who's got their hand in it, there are 4 major groups that have hands in that data. So how does that data governance help with that? Well, so a framework is going to clarify who gets to see what kind of data. It can help us understand from a staffing perspective what's public versus non-public versus private. It tells us where do we get our data. So if we're looking for billing data, we go to COSWEB. If we're looking for accounting data, we would go to SWIFT. And if we're looking for staffing data, who's employed on any given day, how many people are we paying, we will go to Semaphore. And here's the biggest thing, do our counts tie out? We always have a problem with FTE versus headcount. I think everybody does. FTE is of course, the portion of the person you're paying for, and it can be a full FTE or a partial FTE. Headcount, of course, is butts and seats, and they don't have to be a full FTE, so those are different. And then how do we know if we have enough budget? That's where the data stewards come in for finance. We have to project to the end of the fiscal year or the end of the biennium. So how do we make sense of any of this? We have been driven to starting to look at business intelligence tools to graph and chart our data. And I think the BI tools can help provide the context that you're looking for. So you can, in this example here, and I'll demo the dashboards in just a second here. This just shows year-to-date charges by customers. This is one of the graphs that we use. And you can look at that and you can see who's the big spender for year-to-date charges by customers. And it's H55. H55 is our Department of Human Services. No surprise there. They're probably the big spender in all states. So metrics. Financial metrics can help us make sense of data. And this is something that we show in the BI tools. We are using things like year-to-date spend and trend lines. We distinguish one-time charges and month-to-month charges. What I think I'm showing you here is charges by billing period. And this is probably from one of the product lines. And so you can go back and see what charges each month. I think this is back to July of 18. So you can see on the line graph where the peaks and valleys are. We've drawn a rolling average line. So we can help our goal is to help agencies start to understand what they're paying for IT and how to track those expenditures. And one of the things that we found is, depending on what your role is in the organization, you want more or less detail. And as you can imagine, executives don't really want all of the detail. They want to see trend lines. But the people who are looking at the bills, they of course want to know if, how many laptops. If I only get 14, I don't want to be paying for 60. So this is a dashboard, and I won't get into the live dashboard. This is small. I don't know why my screen is sharing from me. But anyway, so this is a payroll dashboard, and a couple things you can see here. This is the FTE count. We've got a lot jammed in here. So this is a summary. This is the FTE count based on the last pay period. And these are by agencies across the enterprise. That's what we're seeing at the top. We're looking at average FTE here for across the years. So we have average FTE in 18, 19, 20, and 21. And they're actually fairly stable. You can see average salary and fringe year to date. This is a big deal for us when we talk about budgets. People that are on call, we want to know how, it's kind of a sleeper cost because you've got FTEs and then some of them are on call. They're getting extra money to pick up a phone and man a help desk or something. So that's another just dimension of budgeting. And then we've got over here in the middle panel, you can see things by account class, what your spending has been. Over here on the right, we've got vacancies and projections. We've got current vacancy projection and with an assumed vacancy fill rate, so we can do some. We're starting to try to do some what-if scenarios with this. Let me show you another slide here. This is a salary projection dashboard that we used just the past few months for budget. I had the names, but if you are an agency, you can pull this up and you can see each of your employees. You can see their employee ID, the position number, and depending on the data set you're in, the data source, employee ID or position number would be the key. FinDep is our cost center, so we need to know where they're budgeted, and then we need to know, are they budgeted for time or part-time? And then we want to know what the classification is, and so these are information technology specialist 4s, a couple 4s and a 5 and a 3. Salary actuals, you can see what we actually year to date, what the person has cost. I don't know when I grabbed this data, but you can see we break it out by fringe, and then this is our obligation. This is our projection to the end of the year, and you can see who the supervisor is. So that will help if you're a manager, you can pull this up and see all the people you're working with. Over here, we've got, on the lower left, we've got FTEs by position. And I think vacancy projection with intent to fill date, this has been a big deal for us. Try to get our arms around the budget and answer that question. It's really simple. How many vacancies do we really have? We have a lot of ghost vacancies in our systems. We have people leave and maybe there's a fill behind, maybe there isn't, and the vacancies stay on the books and then they can inflate your budget. So we've done a huge cleanup this past year to take a look at every vacancy and make sure that the managers get identify a date that they actually want to fill the position so that we can get it projecting in budgets. This payroll dashboard has allowed us to start I think quarterly meetings with all of the managers and supervisors to say, here are the people that are on your roster, here's what they're costing you. You had somebody leave, you have this, here how many vacancies you have. And then if they have something different, we work with HR to make sure we get that data cleaned up and managed.
So Cathy, a lot of people have real challenges looking at data by role, right, or by position. Can you talk a little bit about what that journey was like for you guys? And like, did you already have great data and everybody had good HR data and their roles all lined up, or what?
Oh God, no. No, it's a mess. we have a terrible onboarding, offboarding process. When people leave the organization, the supervisor is supposed to take them out of all of the systems and then do all of the HR tasks. And as of course, that doesn't happen every month. It's a mess. But we do know that our best source of data is the Semaphore, the data system that pays people. So we're looking to Semaphore as the most authoritative data system with this. And so we go through Semaphore and we will pull the Semaphore data out by name for the staff people by name. And we sit with the managers. I'll show you that in a second. I'll get out of the slide. And we sit with the managers and we say, here are your 15 people. Here are their classifications, which sometimes they're not completely aware of. And here are the names. And so we have to show people, show managers who their people are, what their position is, and how long they're projected. Sometimes they have positions that are ending and managers aren't aware of that. So this is, even though I think we've started to get some good data publication tools, we still have to work with it on a regular basis to make sure that we keep it cleaned up and that we keep everybody engaged and aware of what's going on. Did I answer your question, Dan? I'm not sure.
You did indirectly. So the statement was, it's been a journey, right? And
yeah,
even now your data is not always perfect, but you're still seeing significant value out of this. So I just wanted to make sure that people didn't think that they're like, oh my gosh, I couldn't even do this, and start to tune out, because they need to understand, again, right? Like, you get started, even if your data is not perfect, only when it's visible do you start to transform and people know it's being measured and things can get better. So I know that seeing what you're doing could look overwhelming to a lot of people, and I didn't want them to think that it wasn't approachable.
Oh no! In fact, the only data that we think that we know is accurate, well, we think it's accurate, is the payroll data, because we're pretty sure that the state doesn't pay people who don't work there. So that we know, or we think we know. So that's what we go back to, and we spend a lot of time cleaning up data and saying this is. And I really am surprised. I mean, I've been a manager myself, so I guess I get it. But we spend a lot of time showing managers who their people are, and who the people are that are on the payroll and getting paid, and how they fit into the budget. And we have a payroll manager who works with staff, works with the enterprise directors frequently to help them understand this. So no, this is, even with all of this stuff, we still have problems. I've been just blabbing here. Questions before I turn over and show you some of the dashboards? Okay, let me see if I can. I'm going to try ending this.
I was going to say, you usually have to, end the share and then reshare.
Yeah, all right. And then I'm probably going to have to.
We're still, oh, there you go.
Yeah, okay. So this particular dashboard that I'm showing you, this is the dashboard that this is what we use for rate setting this year, not staffing, but this is Power BI. It's a Microsoft tool, and we have a Power BI architect. She's actually a financial person, and I think the reason that we have been successful here, in fact, I know the reason that we've been successful here, is the person who's been building these dashboards. She has a really strong background in finance, and she has a strong background in IT. And I think that's always, or a strong background in data, in finance data, and then how to how to work with it. I think that's the kind of person that you're looking for. What I've seen over the years is you get somebody, and we have people like this in the organization. We have in other parts of the organization, we have people that, of course, we have DBAs, we have report writers, we have people who are, they work with complex data sets, but until you can, and then we have lots of financial analysts too, who understand the models, who create the cost models, who actually manage the computations. But until you get a person who can have a foot in both worlds, I think that's the key to getting data sets that that work. That's just my personal thing here. This is the Department of Agriculture as an example. Before I do that. So when we did our rate setting this year, this has helped us a lot. In the past, in previous years, we would send this information out in Excel spreadsheets, which no one could, well, they came from, Excel spreadsheets come from email. Then everybody says, well, I didn't get the email, or you sent me the wrong email, or you sent me the wrong file or something. So what's helped us a lot is to publish things in the tool and go with the publication date. And so you can see at the top here, the data was updated 9/8/20. This dashboard hits directly against our source systems. But the things that we're showing are original budget amount, and this would be for the Department of Agriculture, their entire budget for FY20. So 2 years ago, where did they start? They started at 1.8 million, which is different from what we billed them in FY20. And the thing that I think financial people, I know, they have a hard time wrapping their head around this. They say, well, the budget is the budget, and that's where they started. No, business people don't care about the budget, because all budgets are a point in time, and they forget about them the minute they've done them. What they care about is what they've been billed. So we added this billed amount here, because that's their operational feet on the ground kind of thing. It really cost them $2 million to operate last in FY20, not 1.8. So what they're budgeting then in FY22 is 2.1 million. So then they say, well, oh my gosh, why did things go up? We know we did terrible things in MNIT Finance that are causing us not to be able to pay for our IT. So we calculate the deltas for them. So from from the amount that we billed them, and we don't compare to the budget, which that's one of those, if you're, I think finance people think that's wrong, but business people understand this. So the delta is between the billed amount and the new budget. So it's 135,000 up, which, depending on the agency, we have some little boards that if it's up $500, they're asking for a legislative change. But so it went up $135,000. That's a delta percent of 6.7. And these calculations here, I think, have been the real game changers. So why did we go up? Is it because we're using more services? And in this case, this has changed due to volumes. So in this case, their cost went up 84,000 because they're using more services. Okay, that's great. That's only half. Are you guys charging us more for what we're buying? And the answer is yes, we are. So they increased by, rates went up, and so that's part of the increase. And then we have, I don't know, I hope you all don't have this, we have a way to charge overhead. We have two ways to charge overhead. Some goes on the service rates, just like you would expect, and some is pulled out in direct bill admin charge. And that was a decision that was made by the financial steering team. Good decision, bad decision, I don't know. You can see, agencies can see directly what they're being charged. So the admin charges this year, they went up a lot because security costs are going up. So for this Department of Agriculture, their costs went up 35,000 in the direct bill admin. And then as you scroll over to the right on this, you can see volumes and some other things. So that's the high level that we're going to be reviewing with the executives in the agencies actually starting next week. And then they want to look at, well, what am I getting for that money? You're charging me $135,000 more. So when you drill into this, the next thing you see are the product lines. So we have contracted voice, data center, database. So these are groups of services. One way to look at these here is, let's see if I can do this. Okay, so if I click on this, then I can see which areas had the biggest percent of change. So middleware seems to be an area that went up a lot. And it looks like most of it went up because they're using more of it, which is always a good story when you're talking business. It's a bad story if the cost went up. The rates for this particular group of services actually went down. But if you click one more time, let's see if this works. I can get to the specific service, and this is now one of the things we have to do. We have this is a really technical description: middleware tier 1 middleware INST complex. Who knows what that means? One of the things we've got to do is rewrite the service names so they're more business friendly. And you would think this would be an easy thing to do, but it's not. The service, and this is just an aside, the service names were written by the technical people, and they were developed within the case or the character limits for all of the systems. And then we end up with something incomprehensible like this. So assuming you know what that is, that's the particular service that's causing the increase. Let's look at another one here, data center. That's not as bad. Went up 21%. So hosting costs have gone up. So let's take a look here. They're actually using more. So you can see that the cost went up $172 because of the increased usage, but they've gone up $300 because of rates. So the discussions that we're about to have with the this is, I don't know why this didn't go from here. So we're just reviewing this information with the Chief Business Technology Officers, and then starting next week, we're going to be helping Chief Business Technology Officers review this information with their agency leadership. And this is all timed to get the agencies, the 70 plus executive branch agencies, it's time to get them ready to do their governor's budgets, which are due October 15th. And then our big story with this, of course, is so from our perspective, it looks like Department of Ag, you're going to be spending $2.1 million for these enterprise services in FY22. But then we always have to go back to all budgets are point in time, all data is point in time. And even though we went through a very elaborate process, my 7-step process that I showed you in the beginning, things may have changed. So we this time around, we actually made the agencies certify their usage volumes. That was another problem that we've had in the past is agencies would say, I never told you I was going to use that much, even though they did. Or they say, I don't know where you got those volumes, you got the wrong file. So at any rate, this is what we think Ag is going to spend. And they may say, but this has been a terrible year, 2020, and we don't have 2.1 million anymore. We have to make a cut, and that's fine. So we're telling them this is what the result of our process was. We can show you the particular services that you said you were going to use, but if you have to do some belt tightening, you can put a different amount in for your governor's budget. And then next time around, when it comes to doing the 24 budgets, we would show, this FY20 budget amount in this column, and then we show them what they actually spent. So we're starting to get some traction where we can have a repeatable cycle with data that they can understand. The thing that we don't do, or we do, we don't do it. We can't do any predictive kind of modeling. It's very it's very manual, it's very one-off. We would like to get to the point where we have some algorithmic predictive modeling. So based on what their monthly usage is, we can, help them understand. Well, we can do that right now. We can say, if we go to the billing dashboard, I can show you for the monthly usage. So
Cathy, I'm going to have you pause for a second because we have a couple of
Sure.
questions.
Oh, sure.
And then I want to make sure you have time that you get to your headcount dashboard.
Oh, yeah, I can go back.
You are doing some predictive modeling and showing like early warnings for positions ending and stuff, which on a public sector that's an issue where there are positions that turn over, but for people using contractors, that's also an issue where like all of a sudden the contractors term will be ended and nobody was paying attention, and so I think that that's something that people really want. But for the reports that you were just showing, David was asking who's the intended audience, IT or the business or both?
Both. This is both. And I think when we started this, I don't know that we knew who our intended audience was. I mean, we just wanted the noise to stop from the Excel spreadsheet problems, and we didn't want any more legislative audits. But what we've found is that both the service managers, so those are the IT staff, they can track the customer usage through this, and customers can see what they're using. And a different, not in this one because this is the biennial budget dashboard, but we have dashboards that show monthly usage, and they start you out with the budget amount, and then you have year-to-date billing, and then based on your year-to-date usage, we predict out to the end of the biennium what we think you're going to continue to use and what that's going to cost you. So what the data is always the same. It's the view of the data that's different. So if you are an IT person, what you're going to want to do is look at the data from these product line perspectives. You're going to want to see product lines probably across the enterprise. You're much less concerned about what ag uses in particular. I mean, you may be concerned about a particular agency, but generally they're worried about product line margins across the enterprise. IT people, if you're the CBTO at ag and you're managing your budget, then you just want to see your ag numbers like we're showing here. And if you're a business partner at ag, so who would the business partner be at ag that would care about this? I think the CFOs sometimes care about this. And I don't know, I don't know that we actually have any CFOs that, to be honest, they have access to this, but I don't know that they get in here on a regular basis. I think the CBTO and CBTO teams are using this to show business what the budgets are and how the budgets change from month to month. But we've really tried to empower, I don't know if empower is the right word, I think it's more teach and coach the CBTOs and their seconds and thirds in command how to use this to talk to their business about what their IT services cost. And then the IT people, the enterprise IT people are looking at this to say, well, I budgeted for, I don't know, the one we were looking at before, I guess was middleware, don't work so much. This is what I budgeted for middleware, but I'm spending way more than I intended, or we're spending way less, whatever the thing may be, or we don't have as many users. This data set here helps us identify which services need to be retired. We had a SPIAP, I think it was a Microsoft SharePoint on-prem. That was the abbreviation for it. Anyway, didn't have any users, had fixed costs, and we were able to show the enterprise teams through here that here are your volumes. It's a declining service and it's costing a lot. We've got to get rid of it. We have another one, FileNet, that I think may go the same way. But you can show people that you can show enterprise people what the costs are and what the volume usage is, and then you can also show business partners. Okay, FileNet's expensive. Here's what it looks like it's going to cost you, and you can. They can make better decisions, I think, about what services. The levers that we give agencies, of course, are the volumes. If they say, middleware is too expensive, it's gone up, I don't want to use it, then they can not buy that service from us. So that's really the only levers that they have for managing costs, is to increase or decrease the usage.
And then Cathy, Wynn had a question about your rates. He wants to know, are you using standard fixed rates, or are they variable rates that are based on the cost of service total consumption?
Yeah, both. We use both. It depends. Well, let me see here. Rates are set every 2 years, and then on a quarterly basis, we monitor the under and over recovery. And then at the end of a biennium, we end up making adjustments. Just this last week, we ended up adjusting because we had done the FY19 analysis. We had some rates that were overcharging in FY19, so we were able to adjust down some rates in 21. But the flip side of that, and they're not going to be happy with it, is some rates under recovered, so we're going to have to raise some things. Some services under recovered, so we'll have to raise some rates. So that's how the fixed rates work. But there are also pass-through rates. There are things that we call cost plus. So we've got kind of a mix. But the vast majority of them are fixed rate services.
There you go. Well, we have just a few minutes left before we have to break and then restart. And I want to make sure people have time for other questions. But as we go, why don't you pull up the payroll reports that you were showing the stills of and show kind of the true action that we were talking about.
Okay, so I think this is what I was showing you before. This is the summary sheet. And let me see. Let me pick. I'm gonna pick ag again. What our payroll manager does is works with the directors on this level. So, and then this is ag, so this is the agency, this is the cost center. And then here are the people by name, the named people that are in the cost center. You get their classification, which you're right, no one really cares about that. This is the budget that they're in. This is a repeat of that. And then this is where you see, so the budgets are in the accounting system, but so that was the SWIFT, but I don't know why we got the SWIFT name. Anyway, don't go there. And then Semaphore is the payroll system. So this dashboard merges accounting and payroll data. So from a payroll perspective, this is application service manager. This is the position control number, and that's how HR knows that you have somebody, you have a position control number. Without that, you don't exist. That's how we pay you based on that. Employee ID just gets you into that system, and then we tell you if you're full-time or part-time, and the supervisor. So what we would do on a monthly or a quarterly basis, and sometimes depending on if they're frequent flyers or not, you meet with people and you say, Patrick Duffy, here are all of your employees. Does this seem to make sense? This is how much of an FTE they were based on the last pay period. So that's just the ongoing stuff. And, we found that, I said this before, but we found that a lot of managers and supervisors don't always understand that, like this guy, he's probably split funded. In this particular cost center, he's funded 90%. And then it looks like he's got, that's not what this is the manager. Over here, you'd see people that would be split funded. So that's how you could handle that. But the more interesting is the vacancies. Here's the position number, PTR, position tracking request. So that means HR knows about it, where it is in the HR process. And one of the good things that's come out of this is finance has started working really closely with HR. And I think that's been an organizational challenge because HR thought they had the right information, and then finance always said, well, if you don't have money, you can't fill it anyway, and that's where the conversation stopped. But I know Callie works with HR very closely. She said she talks to them a couple times a week to make sure that when positions come in that there's money for stuff. So here's an employee ID, an employee name, and let's see. Status. So here's the date initiated, the date that the position, something happened with that position, the status, and where the location is. So if you this box down here helps people understand what's going on with their vacancies, and then down here we just got some additional kind of nice to know statistics. Salary projection is, and the thing is, this data has always been available in the salary projection reports. But what I hear people saying is with a BI tool, we've been able to pull things together that you would have had to grab a couple of salary projection reports. And salary projection reports out of Semaphore would have been PDF, or I suppose you could have exported as Excel. But we are able to say, well, this is the information that we want to see, and then of course pull that all together. So here's salary projections. So here's salary actuals to date, fringe salary obligation, and then fringe obligation. So you can really manage your budgets a little bit better. And then baseline budget here, back to, you know, how much did you really have? What were you really starting with? And then FY21, where are you now? So the position count, I think I have everybody. No, this is ag. So apparently there's 333 positions. I think that's the total. Vacancies are projecting here. And down here we've got kind of the same structure I was showing you before. The original budget, year to date, the estimate, what we currently have in SWIFT. So the SWIFT is the bank. So if you don't have enough money to cover your estimates in SWIFT, you're in trouble. The original NICAS budget here, so where you started in 21, and are you having increase? This is if you've requested increases or decreases, and what we loaded into SWIFT, and then here's the forecast over here. So it's still a lot of data. It's a lot of data for people to get their arms around. But what we've found is something like this helps us start those data conversations and helps us continue them. And we stop fighting about, is the data right? Where'd you get that data? My counts are different. We haven't had those kinds of disagreements. It's been more about how can I get my data cleaned up in the source system, because the fact that we're pulling it directly from source systems, I think, helps a lot, and then people will work with us, or we'll work with people to get it cleaned up. Questions?
So I'm gonna do a quick summary, and then we'll take questions. One of the kind of the things that I've heard, the value that this kind of reporting is bringing to the organization is you've been able to, one, increase relationships, right? Like the HR, finance relationship and people doing it. Also allowing people just to have insights and understand how to better balance their people and look at people who maybe be partially funded or overfunded. Like how did that person end up 1.3% funded, right, rather than 100% funded? And then also helping people to get an early heads up and a warning if positions that they're dependent upon are going to be ending and they haven't started the process to renew it or to refill it, right? Are there other values that you think have come out of this process and this tool that are important that people should know about?
We had terrible trouble managing our vacancies. Managers thought they had a lot of vacancies when in fact they didn't. Or didn't know, or conversely, didn't know they had vacancies that weren't being filled. So I think that's been a big piece.
Awesome. Questions? We've got just a minute or two to take some additional questions. If anybody else has questions for Cathy. Cathy, this is really good. The stuff that you guys are doing in Power BI is really interesting and really powerful. I think you're bringing transparency to people in ways that they've never had it before.
Yeah. It's changed the conversations. I mean, we've shifted from conversations about is your data right or is it wrong to how can we get to our business strategies in the organization? Are we really staffed correctly for help desk? Do we have enough people? What are our fixed costs? Why are our fixed costs the way they are? So it's changed the conversations a lot.
That's awesome. Any other questions? So I'm gonna give you guys a heads up that Charlie's told me we have to actually end the meeting, not just stop the recording. So we're gonna end this meeting and then immediately start again with Wyndham's session that starts in 4 minutes. So I'll be opening it immediately back up. So you will get disconnected. You'll need to reconnect, but I encourage you to reconnect. This is a fireside chat you're not going to want to miss.
And you should be able to reconnect using the same link of any of the talks. So it should be all right.
All right, well, thank you again, Cathy. Appreciate your time and spending so much detail sharing with us what you guys have been developing and how it's changing things. I know you're going to be inspiring a bunch of folks.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I'm going to end the session and we will restart.